After Yosef interprets the dreams for Paro, and Paro realizes that he's going to need to appoint Yosef to be the viceroy of all of Egypt, there's a few phrases, a few psukim that take place until Yosef actually leaves. Let's go through those psukim one by one to see what's the final straw, what's the final line, maybe the final clause necessary in order for Yosef to be actually ready to go out. It first says in Parshas Miketz, Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk Lamed Zayin, Vayitav hadavar be'enei Paro u'vnei avadav. Everyone's happy with the idea. Vayomer Paro al avadav hanimtza kazeh ish asher ruach elokim bo. They recognize that Yosef has the word of Hashem with him. He's the man. Now it says the phrase Vayomer Paro el Yosef a number of times. Seemingly each time Yosef wasn't ready to go out yet, and then Paro has to speak to him again to encourage him and say, I'm behind you, you can go out. And I want to know, what was that last thing that Paro said in order to finally encourage Yosef to be willing to go out? So it starts off, Vayomer Paro al Yosef, Achrei hodia Elohim otcha et kol zot, ein navon v'chacham kamocha. I trust you, I recognize if Hashem has taught you all of this, informed you all of this, you must be the man. Ata tiyeh al beiti, ve'al picha yishak kol ami. I'm going to give you the rule over the entire country except for the throne. That wasn't enough. Yosef didn't go out. He tries again. Vayomer Paro al Yosef, it says again, Vayomer Paro al Yosef, the second time. Re'eh, look, natati otcha al kol eretz Mitzrayim. What are you waiting for? I've now appointed you to be the king over all of Egypt. Vice king. You're in charge. So Yosef still wasn't going. Vayasar Paro et tabato me'al yado v'yitein oto. So he took off his ring, the signet ring which signified that Yosef had rule over everything. And he dressed Yosef in big day sheish, and he put a golden necklace around him, revid zahav al tzavaro. That's not enough. Okay, we'll keep going. And he rode him on the Markevet HaMishnah, Ashelo, and they gave him a title, Avrech, and Yosef still didn't go out. So again, the new phrase, Vayomer Paro Yosef, it seems like Yosef needed further encouragement until he was able to take the position. What's the last phrase? Vayomer Paro Yosef, Ani Paro. Listen, I'm the boss, I'm Paro. I'm giving you the rule that no one in the world will be able to raise up their hand against you with Raglo kol eretz Mitzrayim. Now the final pasuk, and this is the clinks. This is the turning point. Vayikra Paro Shem Yosef Tzofnat Paneach. He changes Yosef's name to Tzofnat Paneach, and Vayitein lo et Osnat bat Potifera Kohen on leisha. He changes his name and gives him a wife. Now, finally, Vayetze Yosef al Eretz Mitzrayim. That was the last moment that Yosef needed, and now he goes out of Mitzrayim. Vayetze Yosef mirifnei Paro ve'avor b'kol Eretz Mitzrayim. What changed that last minute? What was necessary in the name change and in the marriage to the daughter of Potipera? What was in those two elements that was the final straw that Yosef needed to go out? The Ramban writes that Yosef saw the dreams that he'd originally had starting to be fulfilled. But if his name was Yosef, and they would know that he's Yosef, it might not work. He needed a cover. He needed another name. He needed Hashgacha Pratis, determined that his name would be changed, so that when the brothers would come down, they would not identify him as Yosef, but rather he would be someone else, Tzofnat Panech. That was stage one that was needed with Siyata Deshmaya, Hashgacha Pratis, in order to ensure that the brothers wouldn't initially recognize him. But the more astounding one is the next one. Potipera, Rashi says, is Potiphar, which means that the daughter of Potipera is the daughter of the woman who had tried earlier to seduce Yosef. Why was Yosef now marrying his daughter? Why was that necessary? Why was it necessary, or at least from Pharaoh's eyes, or maybe from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes, why was it necessary for Yosef to be marrying the daughter of Potipera in order for him to first go out to all of Eretz Mitzrayim? And the answer, there may be numerous answers, but the answer I saw in the Sefer Oznaim LeTorah is something which unfortunately has returned to some degree in the wider society in our days, which is shaming. There's a society of shaming, where a person's dignity is thrown to the floor. Yosef had been spoken about by all the people as the one who had sinned, the one who was inappropriate. Yosef also was known to be an Eved in the house of Potiphar. There's no way that Yosef could go out, even with Paro backing him, under the image that had become popular of the shaming of Yosef, that he's an Eved, and that he's sinned with Eshet Potiphar. There needed to be a fixing of Yosef's image. They needed to fix the shaming that had previously taken place, so that when Yosef eventually went out, he would be recognized in a dignified manner. And therefore, Paro first changed his name, Tzofnat Panech. He's a new individual now. And if you have any doubts that he's still connected to that former individual, well, who's the one who's going to call him an Eved? It's Potiphar. Potiphar is going to say, you think he's the king? He was my servant. That's not going to take place now. Because if Potiphar gives his own daughter in marriage to Yosef, then Potiphar is going to be proud of the fact, you know who the king is? My son-in-law. He's not going to call him an Eved. He's going to call him my son-in-law. So Paro has neutralized the shaming of being called an Eved. And the second shaming, which was that he had sinned with Eshet Potiphar, at least that was what was in the words of the people. He tried to sin, that was what the people were saying about him. So now, do you think that the Potiphar, whose wife is the one who had accused him originally, is going to allow his daughter to marry Yosef? No way. It must be the whole story wasn't true. It must be that Yosef's claim that he was innocent is true. And therefore the shaming was neutralized. Both the shaming of being an Eved and the shaming of having sinned with Eshet Potiphar were both neutralized with the genius move of first changing his name and then marrying him off to the daughter of Potiphera. And only at that point, Yosef was able to go out. In our society, we often encounter the dignity of a person which is put to the side whilst people speak Lashon Hara about them or put them down. It's our obligation to find ways to give people honor, to give people respect, to find the good points that we can acknowledge in people and put all the other speech aside. And if anyone wishes to make a positive influence in the world, then they may not need to change their name and change their identity and marry someone else. But we have to look for those growth points where we can find a way of always giving honor to other people, remove the shaming from our society, and find those nukudot tovot, those good points, in order to raise up the dignity of the Jewish people. Have a wonderful Shabbos.